Pelican Plunge Water Park had been on our list all summer before my friends and I finally made it out there. It was one of the best water parks in Tampa, and we couldn't wait to hit the massive high-speed slides, which were basically the main attraction. It was a near vertical drop and pitch black inside. You can't see anything once you're in the tube. It feels like you're literally falling. Giggled Sarah, my friend Matthew's girlfriend. So you've been here before? I asked her, a few times. She answered, stepping up in the almost empty line. The park wasn't crowded that day. We were pumped. Sarah went first. She was always the brave one, never scared of anything. She climbed to the top and waved down at us before she zipped into the slide. We waited at the bottom, watching the exit and waiting for her to come shooting out. 10 seconds went by, then 20, and 30. She should have been out already. The slide only takes 15 seconds max. But when a whole minute went by and Sarah didn't appear, we started freaking out. Okay, where is she? Matthew panicked. The lifeguard at the bottom radioed up to the top and asked if she'd actually gone down. They confirmed she'd entered the slide, but she never came out. The lifeguard looked confused. Maybe she got stuck, I suggested. They immediately paused the ride, shut down the water flow, and called the maintenance worker. We stood there waiting and getting more nervous by the second. About 10 minutes later, a worker showed up, grabbed a headlamp, and started climbing up the slide from the bottom, going against the flow and crawling through the tube. We kept watching the exit, waiting for him to find her and tell us she was okay. Maybe hurt, but alive. He was inside for maybe 5 minutes. When he came down, his face was pale and he looked shaken. The flight is clear. There's nobody in there. That didn't make sense. We watched her go in. She never came out. So where was she? They checked the cameras and looked at the footage. Sure enough, she went down the slide at the top. But since there was no camera at the exit, no one could actually be sure if she ever came out. The staff searched everywhere, but Sarah had simply vanished. After an hour, they decided to restart the ride and let someone else go through, see if maybe there was a hidden exit or something they were missing. One of the staff members volunteered. He was a young guy who seemed nervous but went anyway and climbed to the top. We watched from below. He entered the slide. We counted. Exactly 15 seconds later, he came shrieking. He hit the pool and immediately scrambled out, gasping and shaking. What happened? I hit something halfway down. Something soft, like flesh. We all froze. They shut down the slide again. This time they sent 3 workers up with flashlights and searched every inch of the tube. When they got back about 30 minutes later, it was totally empty. No one was in the slide at all. But the guy who went down stood his ground. He definitely hit something and felt the softness of a human body. They called in more workers and searched every inch of the park until dusk fell. They finally found Sarah at the bottom of the pool, still as a corpse. They pulled her out and started CPR, but she was already gone and drowned. The paramedics said she'd been dead for at least an hour. But that was impossible. She'd entered the slide and never came out of the exit. How did she end up in the pool? How did she bypass the entire slide? Nobody could explain it. Matthew was devastated. Sarah's mom couldn't stop crying. We spent the whole night together, talking about all the possibilities. Joey, one of our friends, had recordings of the day on his phone. He pulled out his phone and started going through videos we'd recorded that day. Found one from right before Sarah went down the slide. He'd been filming from the bottom, then pointing the camera at the exit and waiting for her to come out. He turned up the volume and really paid attention. At first, it was faint, but it was definitely there. A banging sound, like someone hitting the inside of the slide, muffled and desperate. Suddenly, Sarah's voice called out from inside, screaming for help. He showed us the video. We all listened and watched. He could hear the banging and the voice, but the slide was supposed to be fast. You go in and you come out. There's no time to bang on the walls or scream unless you get stuck or something stops you. But the workers checked and said the slide was clear. So what stopped her? What kept her in there long enough to bang on the walls and long enough to scream? And how did she end up at the bottom of the pool that wasn't even connected to the slide? The water park shut down the slide permanently and never gave a real explanation. It only posted that it condemned the tragic accident and equipment malfunction. But that doesn't explain the video or the banging or the screaming. Doesn't explain how she bypassed the exit or how she ended up in the pool. I'm still trying to figure it out and make sense of it, because none of it makes sense. And the worst part is, we'll never know what really happened to her in that slide, what she saw or felt, or why she was banging and screaming. We just know she went in and never came out the way she was supposed to. And I can't stop thinking about it. I was only 19 when I landed my first gig doing admin stuff at Mission Bay Aquatic Park in San Diego. The water park was super popular amongst kids, so we literally had hundreds of families and kids coming through every single day. My job was mainly scanning tickets and helping out guests. It was totally nuts, but I seriously loved seeing all the kids having the time of their lives. The first week was a whirlwind, with so many staff members and new faces to keep track of. That's probably why it took me a few days to even notice the guy. He was a lifeguard who always stood near the lazy river. He wore the standard uniform with red shorts and a white shirt with the park logo and whistle around his neck, but he gave off creepy vibes to me. His uniform looked faded, like it was old and outdated, and he never rotated positions like the other lifeguards did. They switched every hour to different stations and different pools, but this guy always stayed at the lazy river. I'd seen him every shift in the same spot and the same position. I thought maybe he was old in the job and was above the rules. But I still paid attention and started noticing his interactions with the kids. He'd pull them aside and tell them they needed a safety check. He'd go through their pockets while talking to them. He'd ask where their parents were and keep them talking longer than necessary. The kids would look uncomfortable, but he'd keep going, asking questions. I mentioned it to another employee. They shrugged and said maybe he was just being thorough, but it didn't feel thorough. It felt wrong. A few days later, I finally worked up the nerve to mention it to my supervisor. I described the guy, the faded uniform, the lazy river, and the way he talked to kids. My supervisor frowned and pulled up the staff list on her computer. What's his name? I realized I didn't know. I'd never seen a name tag on him. Describe him again. I told her whatever I remembered. He was pretty tall, probably in his late 40s, balding on top and rocking a gut. His eyes were all squinty, and he had this nasty smirk that made your skin crawl. She kept scrolling and checked every lifeguard on the roster. Nobody like that works here, Susie. You sure about it? My stomach dropped. Absolutely. I've seen him every shift for a week. She looked concerned.